Hi, everybody. This is September 12th, 2024. It's my latest update on my recovery, my video journal recovery from the trauma of watching the British Columbia New Democratic Party lock away my 64-year-old little brother in his group home for 588 days with no visitors. I was his last surviving family member and visitor. I was 2 years older than him. We grew up together, and we visited at will for 64 years until I complained to the police, the Burnaby police, about a fraudulent and forged power of attorney that Paul's group home, L'Arche, L''ARCHE, created to give him the COVID-19 shot on February 1st of 2021. I didn't find out about this for a year. So L'Arche created a secret power of attorney and only notified my 81-year-old Catholic nun sister 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario, because they wanted to avoid the involvement of my other sister, who actually lives in BC and has cared for Paul, but who is a COVID vaccine skeptic. But I complained to the Burnaby police on August 26th of 2022, and on September 12th of 2022 I got a letter from L'Arche's lawyer saying that Paul's visits with me, that I would never see Paul again, and his visits with me were terminated. The lawyer who sent me that letter, her name is Tara Britnell, Britnell. She's a King's Counsel, which means she's a senior lawyer, or she's been appointed King's Counsel. This was a form of torture for Paul and I. There's no other way to describe it. Paul is my last surviving family member, and I'm his last surviving family member in Greater Vancouver. Tara Britnell allowed a 10-minute telephone call with Paul once a week. She's a truly evil person, truly evil, because this is a form of torture. She allowed a 10-minute telephone call on Fridays. And Paul repeatedly begged me to visit him. He begged me to take him to a movie. He told me he loved me over and over again. He didn't understand what was going on. Paul's never functioned above the level of a 15-month-old infant, and his signature on the document is a forgery. I know, because I taught him to print the only word that he could read or print, and that was his first name, Paul. So, as I said, on August 26th of 2022, I complained to the Burnaby RCMP, and they never followed up. The constable that I spoke with said that she was going to get the original document, and that she would interview the L'Arche's witnesses. L'Arche never obtained legal advice for Paul. They didn't even have the document signed in front of a notary. It was scandalous and shameful abuse of him. Anyways, so the Burnaby RCMP said that they were going to investigate, but all they did was they tipped off the L'Arche to the fact that I'd complained, and L'Arche terminated our visits. And the Burnaby RCMP did not do any investigation at that time. I complained to the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the RCMP in Ottawa, and they did do an extensive investigation, and they ordered the Burnaby RCMP to reopen the investigation of the fraudulent and forged document that gave them power over my little brother. But I didn't get that news until shortly before Paul died. So basically, I found out on the 6:30 on April 21st of 2024 that the Burnaby RCMP had been ordered by Ottawa to reopen the investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney. And Paul was dead within 24 hours. I believe that my sister ordered the medical staff. She didn't tell the medical staff any of this background of the investigation into the fraudulent and forged document giving her power over him. He had had a stroke, or so they told me. And she ordered the medical staff to withdraw all medical support for Paul. So they took away his ventilator. They took away his catheter. They took away his intravenous. And they, I believe, from my observation, they administered a sedative to kill Paul. And he was dead within 24 hours of my sister learning that the Burnaby RCMP had reopened the investigation. The Burnaby RCMP might have asked Paul for a sample of his signature or wanted to interview him. And of course, since he's dead, they couldn't do that. I believe that my nun sister, Catholic nun sister, 4,000 kilometers away in North Bay, Ontario, believed that if Paul was dead, then that would end the investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney. As far as I know, the investigation is ongoing. I'm skeptical that there will be any. I've complained to the British Columbia coroner that I believe Paul was killed by the doctor who was treating him. And I've complained to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. None of them understand the background of my sister discovering that the police had reopened the investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney. I believe that Paul was recovering from the stroke. He looked to me that he was recovering from the stroke. He had grabbed a book from my hand and was turning the pages perfectly. He seemed excited to see me. He looked me in the eye. He had every indication of recovering, as the vast majority of stroke patients do recover. In this day and age, it's really almost medical malpractice to have a patient die from a stroke. And I've had many other visitors to the hospital and many other people, everyone that I've spoken to. The cab driver that took me to the hospital said that his mother survived for 16 years after she had a complete and total stroke. And Paul had a right he did not want to die. He did not want to be sedated to death. And he had a right to survive and to be part of the investigation into L'Arche's fraudulent and forged representation agreement. So what I did today, the way that we can, what I'm hoping people do is that the laws changed in British Columbia to reflect the trend of adult guardianship reform across the United States, which is called Peter Falk's Law. Peter Falk was the actor in the Columbo detective series, and he had a stroke in his 70s, and his second wife would not permit his adult children to visit him. And they never did visit him. But what they did was they created the Peter Falk Foundation to reform adult guardianship laws across the United States, and they did, so that adult guardians of incapable adults are not allowed to isolate and confine them from other family members and loved ones, which is what L'Arche did and my evil nun sister did. So I'm hoping to change the law, though, and what we need to do that is to throw out this British Columbia New Democratic Party government. For 588 days, I begged them to reinstate my visits with my little brother, and they wouldn't even meet with me. I wrote David Eby directly, the acting premier, who appointed himself premier of the province after John Horgan came down with cancer. And they had a cavalier cruelty that was just mind-numbing. I just couldn't believe it. But this is what these socialist communists do. They don't care about people. They care about the concept of people, the idea of people, but they care nothing for the rule of law, nothing for individual rights, nothing for the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Throw these assholes out on their ass. The best way to do that is by finding out who the candidate, the British Columbia Conservative Party candidate, is in your riding. John Rousted is the leader, and he's going to be our new premier. I just signed up to volunteer with my candidate, whose name is Hamid Najifa, in Coquitlam, Millardville. And I'm going to do everything I can to help them. The most important thing is we've got to get rid of these socialists. They have caused nothing but havoc and misery and killed millions of people around the world. These communist socialists, they are their basis is eugenics. They support euthanasia. They're very bad people. I volunteered for Sven Robinson's campaign back in 1978. I had faith in them, but I've been through just a nightmare of torture trying to reinstate my visits with my little brother. And they liked watching me suffer. They like it. They like power. And they will do anything and they will cheat. I believe they will cheat in this election. So get out there. We have to win too big. The win that we need over this British Columbia New Democratic Party has to be too big to rig. So get out there, get signs on your lawn, volunteer for your candidate. Do everything in your power to throw these assholes, these New Democratic Party assholes, out on their ass. That will be the justice that I hope to achieve for my little brother. Once they're gone, then I'm going to focus on changing the law in British Columbia so that guardians of incapable adults cannot isolate and confine incapable adults from their other loved ones, which they often do out of spite or to exact a toll for grievances, for retaliation. Anyways, so that's it for today. I'm just in the middle of my 10,000 steps. And, but I feel positive. There's only the election, the BC election's only a few weeks away. So find out who your Conservative Party is. Just Google it for your neighborhood, for your riding, and volunteer for them. Make sure that you are on the voter list, and start signing up your friends to vote as well, and make sure that you bring 10 friends with you to vote. Take care, everybody. Paul, I miss you so much. I hope you're having fun in heaven with Mom and Dad and Murray and Harry and Teresa.